Hey guys, Doc back with the second greatest hits video. Like I told you earlier, we're going to now talk about Marvel Superheroes Secret Wars. Okay, so Secret Wars was the first miniseries to ever come out. Marvel, under Jim Shooter, beating DC out simply so that they could come out and say, hey, we've got this first limited series, miniseries, if you will. And they wanted to beat DC at any cost. So, as we look on this, I've always considered Marvel to have characters that have more heart and they're more relatable than the so-called superheroes over at DC. You know, I like Superman, okay. Green Lantern is probably my favorite of all the DC superheroes, but even he, not everybody could be a hotshot pilot like Hal Jordan. But anybody could be Spider-Man under that mask. Anybody could turn into the Incredible Hulk because they deal with anger each and every day. Anybody could be intelligent enough to build a suit of armor like Iron Man or Doctor Doom or, things like that. The X-Men, as we talk about every Wednesday, they fight for, justice among the injustice. They try to teach people how to not look only at the outward value of a man or a woman, but, see the human being inside, whether they be superpowered or young, old, black, white, anything in between. For whatever reason they're oppressed, the X-Men are always there to try to be the voice of reason and say we shouldn't oppress these people. They should be respected for who they are. The only thing I don't like about Secret Wars is it just doesn't have that cosmic scope that Crisis on Infinite Earths has. I mean, yes, you see an assemblage of heroes in this first 2 pages, just as you see an assemblage of villains on the next page. But it doesn't have that same punch to it. It doesn't have the same stakes, I guess is what you would say. It doesn't have the same stakes as Crisis on Infinite Earths. Crisis on Infinite Earths, multiverses are going to be destroyed. Multiple universes are going to be destroyed. And here, it just seems as though it still is simply a smash 'em up, beat 'em up. Old school heroics. Old school comics. Now, we do get something cosmic here where it shows that the Beyonder destroyed a universe. And then on the next page, brought it back together, or at least one of the planets, as Battle World. But it still doesn't have that epic scope. It's more humanistic, don't get me wrong, because we see here that it's about individuality and superheroes rather than the cosmos. But to me, the cosmos is greater in scale and greater of importance than the small version of heroes versus villain. I do like the ads that are in here. They, just like the copy of Crisis, they just went back and whitewashed and put it on white paper so it's extremely bright. I kind of like the paper that came with Crisis better because it's not just white as can be. Because a lot of these issues, when you first got them off the shelves back in 1984, they weren't this bright. The colors weren't this boisterous. But it's a story about humanity. It's a story about putting, as Doom is trying to explain to the villains here, putting aside your small, petty wants and indifferences for the greater good of all. The power that could be grasped for all. So, and it all comes down to heroes versus the villains. So, to me, this miniseries is kind of like the Michael Bay dumb, fun, explosive summer blockbuster. And Crisis, on the other hand, is more a book about heroes banding together to save not only their universe but the greater good. So I really enjoy the Crisis book more so than I did Secret Wars. I'm going to collect both of them just because they both have that historical significance to them. But at the same time, I think I'm thoroughly going to enjoy reading Crisis much more than Secret Wars, though it is a greatest hits. I don't really like the Mike Zeck artwork like as much as I normally do. I like Mike Zeck, and he does a bang-up job on Captain America. He's done a bang-up job on Punisher covers and a bunch of other books that I really, really enjoyed. He did Kraven's Last Hunt, which is one of my favorite Spider-Man stories of all time. But I just didn't like the line work in this particular book. So maybe it was rushed. Maybe it was, hey, we've got to get this out in front of DC because DC is going to do this big event next year. So we've got to make sure that we push this together. So maybe it's not Mike Zeck doing his very best artwork, which blows my mind because at that point I would say he was a relatively young man who would have been at the peak of his prowess, as well as George Perez being at the height of his power on Crisis. But anyway, enough about that. This was a facsimile edition. This one cost $4.99. Crisis was $3.99. But they are both really fun stories, really interesting stories. I've just always enjoyed Crisis more so than I have Secret Wars. But anyway, enough beating up on Secret Wars. If you guys see this in your shops, go ahead and pick it up. Check it out. Let me know down in the comments what you think. I guess I've been kind of one-sided on both of these videos talking about which one I enjoy better. But I would say pick up both of these, give them a shot, and then see which one you like best. So this has been Marvel Superhero Secret Wars Issue 1. Greatest Hits.